We were in that room. I don't know how many seats were there, but there was
not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough.
The people were standing up, all the way around.
When do you have standing room only for volunteer nights?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say it was crazy, but, it was kind of unexpected in some ways because just how many people that it takes to make all this go every Sunday morning, from the babies and the diapers and changing all that, and then having the youth. How many adults are involved with the youth? How much youth is helping out making the youth happen?
Sometimes I think we forget exactly how much it takes to do what we're doing at the Orchard. And really how much is happening at the Orchard, because like you say, you get locked in a room, and you're like, wow, this is cool. But you forget there's 2 other rooms and multiple services that happen with it. And it just is a good reminder. This is something big that's happening.
Yeah.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
All right. Well, welcome into Let's Talk About That. I am glad you're here for a great conversation today. I'm excited about it because we have podcast legends, one may say Hall of Famers, Jason and Nikki Griswold joining us on the podcast today. Good morning, Griswolds.
Good morning.
Now, you guys didn't know before you walked in here this morning that you were legends on the podcast, did you?
I had an idea.
Oh, that's what I'm talking. This is Mr. Dump the Zero to go with the hero. Of course he had an idea. If you missed that joke and you go back and listen to the Griswolds podcast, you'll get it then. No, you guys, last I checked, or heard, I don't ever check, Chris tells me, is this God or Taco Bell conversation with the pastors, is still like number 1. How do I know if God's talking to me? I think number 2 was AJ's kind of farewell tour. Did Chip fire AJ, conversation about where he was sharing a story with what's next. And I think right there at number 3, even making a pushback for number 2 spot, is the story of Jason and Nikki Griswold. Just a classic.
Yeah, I heard of somebody listening to it this past week.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Was it you?
No, it was not me.
I didn't know. You drive over to Jacksonville. I would like to listen to myself talk again.
Yeah. But then I also thought that the bold youth was probably one of the highest ones as well.
I think it probably will be, because typically what happens is like we get like the vast majority of those listens come in the first week. But then some of them you just keep going forward, like as people share, talk about them, and typically those are like more personal stories or, conversations around a particular topic. And so I think that's kind of what's given, that conversation some legs, because in all seriousness, I think it was a good conversation of not just, about you guys as a couple, but about your faith journey and what that looked like. So I think it's been helpful to folks. And I would encourage you, go back, find that podcast on the feed with Jason and Nikki and listen to it. But for those who haven't heard it and are like, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to go back and listen to it, give them like the Reader's Digest version kind of your story and how you made your way, here to the Orchard.
I think I'll just recap kind of what we did on the last one. And that was, how we kind of met and we worked together at a store in Live Oak, because that's we were both from there.
And then Jason declared himself a certified stud and said, Nikki, I'm taking you out.
Yeah, pretty much. She had a boyfriend. I told her to dump the zero, go out with a hero.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
And she eventually did. It didn't work right away. I just kept wearing her down. So, we had, kind of the history is written. And then we dated for, almost 2 years and got married. And, from there had, a couple of kids and started at a church together. Probably was there for 2 years and then went to another church, and we were there for 14 years. And then it came to a point where our kids were just needing more than what they were getting from the church that we were at. So,
the girls were like teenagers.
They were teenagers.
Late teenagers.
Yeah. And so we kind of said, hey, you guys go find what you deem what is, to be a good part of a youth group. Find you some friends that you get along with, and something that's actually reaching out to you and speaking to you, spiritually. And they did. They landed at a church, and they had a great youth leader there. And, they became part of the youth band and, got really plugged in. And, I had told the church I was at that point, it's like, hey, my family is here. They're thriving. They're doing well. And, we went there, and then it was a good church. The youth was real good for them. And we probably went there for maybe about a year. And then one day we ended up at the Orchard and just checking it out on a Sunday morning. And I was like, this is so different than anything I've been in. And
what if I told you that's not the first time we've been called different?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just really just resonated with me. And I think you can get good preaching at a lot of different churches. There's a lot of great pastors out there. And it was just the whole environment, just, from the worship service and we've been to worship services, I would say, that are better, but it just resonated with us and just kind of hooked us in.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to, number one, just stop and say, we're not going to take offense to the fact you just said we didn't have great preaching or good worship.
Yeah.
I'm going to just pretend that. No.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, that's something that we talk about, is that in the culture we live in today, you can find better worship online in your car. You can find better teaching available at the click of a button, but that's not what makes the local church the local church. It's not just those pieces. It's kind of like, Nikki and the gym, people can download a workout video, with instructors who have more experience, more qualifications, whatever, but that's not why those people come to your gym. They come to your gym for the experience, for the relationships, for the people who are there with them.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing with church. It's just all of that is what makes a church, not just the individual pieces and how good they are, so to speak.
Yeah. And, and the last time we had talked about the service that you did, and it was, I think I'd said it was over Noah, but it was Moses.
Yeah, right? It was Exodus. We had a whole thing about, we were in Exodus and you're talking about Noah. And I was like, that was not an Exodus.
Yeah. And it was the Called series. And at that point in my walk in faith, I was very big about being called to be where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, I had felt called to be at the last church for that time. And even though things were not going well, or they had just started going up, but even when things were going bad, I'm like, no, this is not the time to bail out, to go find somewhere else. This is where I feel called to be right now. This is where God's plan is for me. And, looking back on that, I can definitely see that's where I was supposed to be, even though those times were hard and things were going on.
Yeah.
But I just immediately just felt this is where we were supposed to be, after that first Sunday. And even the preaching that Sunday was just hit me. And I was like, I had never heard this explained and resonate with me like it did.
Well, I remember, you talked about that before, is I think you told Nikki's like, because it was almost like it was a serialized series where each week built on the other. Right. And you were like, man, we got to go back next week. I got to hear how this ends.
I got to hear how this ends. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
because I'd never heard it. I had never heard it laid out that way.
Yeah. I think that's good. And, here you are, fast forward. How long have you guys been at the Orchard now? It's been 7, 8 years?
8 years.
Yeah. 8 years now. And, I remember the last podcast, and I'd heard Nikki say this before. You told Jason, because back at the church before, you ran the media booth and all that. And I guess word got out about that, and they were asked if you wanted to come help. And Nikki was like, if you go up there, you're never leaving. I know how this works. And 8 years later, Jason's leading the media booth. And at this point, Jason's actually filling in, here in Lake City. And, in a lot of ways, Jason is our worship leader at the Orchard in Lake City right now. You may say, well, I've never seen him sing, Thank the Lord. Lord. But yeah, I mean, he really does. He's not just leading the team up there. He's leading the team on the stage. And that's one of the things that we've always prioritized at the Orchard is leadership doesn't have to mean that you're the one in the spotlight, Right. And he's done a great job at that. And that's, part of where I wanted to go with this conversation today is that, serving has always been a big part of both of your DNA. Like it's part of who you are. It's part of what you want to do. It was at the church that you came from. It's been since you've been here. Like Nikki, when you guys were at the previous church, like you were like neck deep in everything, just serving, leading kids ministry and mission trips and all the things. And you're plugged in, here at the Orchard now, and we'll get into what that looks like in a minute. But I thought maybe we'd take a minute just to ask this question, because I know we touched on it the last podcast, but we didn't really dive into it. Why is serving so important to you guys? Why is it so important for you to have a place to serve?
For me, it's just important because I know that's what Jesus did when he was here. I know it's what he expects of us as his followers. And it took me a little while to get plugged in here, a little longer than it took him.
Yeah, Jason was like, fine, I'll do it. But that was intentional too, because you had been so involved.
Yes.
And not that's, if you've ever served in a church, there's a line where it's healthy and there's a line when it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think that you shared with us last time, it had gotten just kind of really overwhelming. And so that's why you wanted to be very intentional when you got to the Orchard about what you took on and when you took it on.
Right. One of my biggest things was because I was in kids ministry for so long that I didn't want any part of that.
Yeah, right.
And now I am because
you have an amazing partner.
I do. And I'm excited.
Boy,
yes. Yes. And I love it. And I think too, because I have grandkids in there, I feel led to serve there as well. Because at this point, at this stage of my children's life, I want them to be able to be in service and get what they need from worship and the sermon. So then I will do the duty of, helping in the kids. But I love it. It's been great.
Well, and it's so crazy when you're in the kids, right? Because you have the nursery and you're not like teaching theology in nursery, right? You're holding babies, and that's a ministry to the parents. Yeah. In First Look, well, let's go. 252 is like elementary, upper elementary. That's where you're leaning into the Bible stories. You're doing small groups. You're helping kids process. You and Leanne are in the middle in First Look, which is like preschoolers to like kindergartners. And that's an age where you're trying to give them Jesus, but you're also trying to give them goldfish. That's a fun time where you're like, yeah, we're going to talk about Jesus, but you're also needing to not be crazy, right?
Yes.
That's funny. I think that, it's so important to understand the importance of serving. And I feel like you guys have probably experienced this. Like you host a group, you've been a part of a group for a while, but I always tell people, I feel like the strongest relationships that I've seen at the Orchard have come from people who serve together, not just people who go to group together.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why that is. I think it's something about, being shoulder to shoulder with somebody, rather than sitting around a circle and sing Kumbaya.
Right.
No, it's not just me. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So it's not just Jason's group that doesn't sit around and sing Kumbaya, I don't think. But it is something about you. You really get to know somebody when you're working with them, even if it's in a limited time. And I think that's important. But also, and we'll start covering some, fresh ground here in just a minute. But one of the things that came out of the last podcast that I knew, but I thought was important for you to share with people is, Nikki, your primary ministry and service isn't inside the four walls of the church. It's the gym that you lead and the ladies that you lead, there at the gym. And I think that's something that we want to double down on at the Orchard. When people say, hey, I want to serve. Well, we've got places for you to serve here on Sundays and Wednesdays or whatever, but you don't have to be limited to that. Like it's all serving in ministry.
Right.
How's that going? Gym still going good?
It's going great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still, you're still in there in the knee deep in ministry with the what's Kaylee's position?
At the gym?
Yeah.
She's a coach.
She's okay. So she's a full-on coach now. I was going to say, I thought she was boss. I couldn't tell.
Oh, well, she's our afternoon coach, and she's a programmer, and she does great.
Well, the reason I was asking is Haley, who is interning here at the Lake City location, she comes to the gym, right? And so she'll come to the office sometimes after coming to the gym, and then she'll go like change or whatever. And she goes, I can't just like go like change or use the restroom at the gym because I feel like I'm like walking up into Jason's office, and that's just I can't do that.
We try to keep his door shut during class time, so they are definitely welcome to use our bathroom.
I know that was just so funny to me because I think we talked about that before in Jason's office, and she's like, I just can't do it.
Yeah,
like well, it is. It is a ministry. And speaking of, that's really where I wanted the conversation to go today. Is this last month of September, we have had our Here For It team nights, and Here For It has really come out of that idea, IT, of impacting tomorrow. And that serving at the church is really people who are saying, hey, I'm here for that. I'm here to impact tomorrow in my local church. And there's been some different areas of that impact tomorrow idea that we've had. One of them has been doubling down on our missions and ministry partners and really engaging people to live as informal missionaries in their community. Another part of it is that we are at all of our locations needing to expand facilities. Like if you've been at an Orchard location lately, you know that seats are at a premium. It's crazy. Yesterday, I'll say in Lake City, was a little bit of a down Sunday for what this Sunday has looked like for a month, and it was still packed. Like it would have been one of our fullest services from the Springs, so it's a need that we have that we're addressing with this Impact Tomorrow initiative. But another piece of that, the third leg of that stool, is that Impact Tomorrow has to involve strengthening the core ministries that we have at the church, because our core ministries are how we help people in their journey of spiritual formation. It's how we reach new people. It's how we, benefit the community. And so these Here For It team nights really focused on 3 of those core ministries that we're trying to strengthen. We had our Next Gen ministry that is kids and students that met in Live Oak. We had our First Impressions team that was, everybody from jump in First Impressions, greeters, parking, setup, guest services met in Branford. And then we had our worship experience teams, which were the media and the band that met here in Lake City. And which one of those did you guys go to?
I was going to go to all 3.
I guess because you're in all 3.
But I didn't make it to the second one.
Yeah, you didn't get to make it the one at Branford. But the reason I asked you guys on the podcast is because between the two of you, you're tied into all of those areas of ministry. So, Nikki, you're in kids. You've already said. You also serve in First Impressions.
Yep.
And Jason, you do something with the worship experience on Sundays.
Yes. A little bit.
Yeah, we've already talked about that. Jason is leading the booth, really, and the band in Lake City. At this point. So initially, just give me your kind of first thoughts of those team nights and, just kind of the different areas of ministry at the Orchard to start. And then we'll kind of maybe dive into what we talked about in those team nights and, how you feel that applies. So maybe let's just start with that. Like, what are some of your initial takeaways of those nights together?
Mine would be, I guess, the community of it all, like everybody coming together and being reminded of how important each ministry is.
Well, let's double click that for a minute, because I do think that you hit on 2 really important things.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what double click means, it means let's open that up and go deeper into it. It hits me now that I'm in student ministry. When I say double click that, sometimes they're like, what? Like, what is like long tap? I don't know. But you hit 2 things. Number 1 was the importance of each ministry. Number 2 was the community of it all. And I do think that's something that I was really hoping to come out of these Here For It team nights, because, when we usually do our volunteer nights, they're usually by location, and we get all of our volunteers from the location together in all areas of ministry. We kind of flipped that on its head this time and said, no, let's not do all areas of ministry from each location. Let's do each area of ministry from all the locations. And so we really got to be, for a little while, one church in one location. And what was that like being in the room and getting to be around some of the people who do what you do at the other locations?
I was going to say, the one we went to in Live Oak, and it was Here For It for the next generation, right, with the kids. And that was, number 1, to see the amount of people that are volunteering and helping in each one of those areas, I think was impactful for me because, just being able to barely find a seat. I mean, we were in that room. I don't know how many seats were there, but there was
not enough.
Not enough. The people were standing up, all the way around.
When do you have standing room only for volunteer nights?
Yeah. Right. I mean, that was, I don't want to say it was crazy, but, it was kind of unexpected in some ways because, from my view, I only see what's in front of me a lot of times, but I know that there's other things going on, because I hear about it, I hear about it from Nikki and other people, but just how many people that it takes to make all this go every Sunday morning, from the kids, from the babies and the diapers and changing all that, and then having, the youth, like how mmany adults are involved with the youth, how much youth is helping out making the youth happen. You're saying Haley earlier, she's, an intern here, and she is now part of making all these things happen as well. So
yeah, I think at every location we have students who have recently graduated, like within the year or two, who are right back helping in student ministry with the middle school.
Making it work.
That's really cool.
It is.
And then, just like you said, sometimes I think we forget exactly how much it takes to do what we're doing at the Orchard, and really how much is happening at the Orchard. Because like you say, you get locked in a room, and you're like, wow, this is cool. But you forget there's 2 other rooms and multiple services that happen with it. And, it just is a good reminder. This is something big that's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just, I would also say about, you were saying with the teams, earlier, one of the things I've heard a lot of the worship teams say, and this is even before that I've been trying to, help and coordinate everything that's going on with the worship team, is that they feel like they're all family, because kind of what you're saying, they're all shoulder to shoulder. They have to work closely with each other on Sunday mornings and Thursday nights when they practice and all that. It is that service, or any service, I would think, it kind of, you depend on each other, you build that relationship, it just becomes, you got to work with them more intimately than just having a small group, where it seems like a lot of times we're, in my case, we're just kind of almost preaching, right? And even that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're actually getting feedback from this person and that person, and it's not forced engagement either. It's more of, hey, let's do this better, or hey, I really think that this may be a better part for somebody else to do, or what have you.
Well, I do think that's one of the benefits of getting volunteers from the different ministry areas, from the different locations together, is like, we're doing the same things, but we're not all doing it exactly the same way.
Right.
Like when you show up at the locations, like it feels similar. Like it feels like the Orchard at our locations, but each one is a little bit different. It's not exactly the same. And I don't know. I feel like for me, it's just always really energizing when all of our locations are together, because I think you just get that glimpse of, man, we are able to be a part of something special right here. And it doesn't just feel like an obligation, but it feels like an opportunity. And sometimes it even feels like a privilege. Like, oh man, I get to be a part of something incredible that's happening. Like we said, in some of those meetings, numbers aren't everything. Numbers aren't the most important thing, but numbers matter because each number's a person and each person's a story, and all that matters to Jesus. And when you look at all the locations together, combined with students, the last 4 weeks, we've had between 12 and 1,400 people at all of our services across locations. And Nikki, how many kids do you typically have in a room on Sundays when you're in kids ministry?
We can have anywhere from 5 to 12 to 14. Yeah. I think we've had 14 once.
Well, which is number one, dear Lord, don't ever let me get locked in a room with 14 preschoolers. But number two, when you hear 12 to 1,400 people, but yet you're there working with 14 little people, it doesn't feel like as overwhelming. It feels like, hey, I know those kids. Those kids come back in. I know their names. I'm going to meet their parents. But that's because we're all getting to be a part of something bigger. And I feel like that's, one thing that I wish more people got to see. Because as, the lead pastor in that role, I get to see that a lot more than most people. Not recently, because I've been tied to Lake City a lot tighter than I have in the last couple of years. But when I get to go to the other locations and look around and be like, yeah, this is us, that we're doing this. And then to see that, I think in different ministry areas and different locations was pretty cool. There was one unexpected thing that came out of the Here for It team nights. And I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but I feel like you'll appreciate it. So snacks got to be a big part of the team night. Like there were some good snacks, and I'm just going to shout out Live Oak. It was crowded, but you know what we had in Live Oak? We had bagel bites and pizza rolls. And shout out Brittany Shearer, who brought a platter full of bagel bites. That was the most elite snack that showed up. Like, I love bagel bites. Yep. Like, bagel bites taste like the 90s. I swear, I love bagel bites. But then we went to Brantford, and Brantford didn't just have bagel bites. Number one, bagel bites are awesome. Brantford had a spread. Right? They had like some chicken and some sweet and sour, like grilled fry, I don't know, chicken that they had made, and like all these desserts and tables. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'm not thinking a whole lot of it until, and I'm going to call her out, Miss Jenny Hendricks from the Lake City location walks by me and she goes, I'm going to have to make some phone calls because they're not going to let Brantford and Live Oak have better food than us. And so when it came to Lake City, like we had all the different stuff, there too. And it was so funny to see. There is, you mentioned a family, Jason. There is a little bit of that like sibling rivalry that goes on between the locations that when it's healthy, it's fun. It can get unhealthy, I'm sure, but it's fun when it's, stuff like that. And I will say the Parker boys appreciated it because my responsibilities for the team night were getting the drinks in the cooler, the soft drinks and everything. And so I'm sure that the guy at the dollar store was like, why does this guy keep coming in and buying all these different drinks every week? But I kept them in the back of my truck in the cooler, and then would ice them down, put some more drinks in it, have for the week. Well, about Wednesday of that first week, Haddon and Chasen figured out Dad's got a cooler with a lot of drinks in the back of his truck. And so they felt like that the gas station had come to them for those 3 weeks in September. So I'm not sure how many Pepsis and Dr. Peppers and Mountain Dews the Parker boys got out of that cooler, but they appreciated the snacks as well. So let's talk about for just a minute what, the content of the team night, because one of the thing that I wanted to push in the Here for It team night was just the idea of 32 trap. Yeah. Right. 32 trap. And you guys were at multiple of those nights. So you heard it multiple times. Have you heard me talk about that before, the team nights?
Yes.
Okay. I thought Jason might have, because it's not something that is frequently heard around the orchard. Like it's kind of funny that it's become a part of our staff culture. And that's why we wanted it to go over to the Here for It team nights. But just for those of you who didn't get to come, 32 Trap is a play in football that I ran as a player. And then when I got to coach football, we ran a lot when I was coaching. And it's a shame this is on a podcast because I really could set Jason and Nikki up here in the office and have them run the play because, we had live examples of what 32 Trap looked like at the Here for It team nights. And by the way, Tim Kinsey from Brantford is now named Flash Kinsey because when he got that ball and hit the hole, my man was gone. He took it to the house.
I was wondering, did anybody else make a show like they did here?
Oh, gosh, no.
Because in Live Oak, they just did exactly what they were supposed to do. But
no. I got far too much 30-year-old testosterone on the stage in Lake City. That was my problem because when I had those guys squared up against each other, it became less about the play and more about I'm fixing to knock you out. But no, Tim Kinsey, new name Flash Kinsey, took it to the house. But 32 Trap is a simple run play designed to go right up the gut, right behind the center. It's designed to get 2 yards, 3 yards. Old Alabama football coach Bear Bryant said like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, right? Like just hard-nosed football. not designed to do too much, super simple, get a few yards and move the ball down the field. Because in football, if you don't know anything about football, it's 10 yards for a first down. If you get 3 yards every play, you'll never be stopped, because you can just move the ball down the field a few yards at a time. And I think that in ministry, sometimes we wonder, are we accomplishing anything? Like Nikki, when you're in the room with the kids, when you're serving first impressions, it's like, okay, what did we do today besides just wrangle toddlers and keep them alive until parents got back? Or, even in media and worship, I don't know if most people be surprised to hear this, but sometimes when you are doing the same thing week after week after week, as amazing as worship is at the Orchard, it can start to feel a little bit more monotonous and a little bit more like, oh, we got to go do this. And you begin to wonder, okay, are we making a difference? And I think that's why the idea of 32 trap is important, because sometimes the best thing we can do is just show up and run the play, just run the play, move the ball downfield, because we overestimate what can happen in 6 months to a year, but I think we underestimate what it can happen in the next 5 years, and I think when you look at the Orchard, we've kind of shown that. Like our church is drastically different than it was 5 years ago. And you guys have been here for part of that. Like think back to 5 years ago. Eddie was still the lead pastor. We didn't have the Live Oak or the Branford location. We were in COVID, and wondering, okay, what's it look like to come out of this? And how many people are coming back, because the reports that we were getting are that people aren't coming back to church now that church is, hey, we can do this online. This is great, and we didn't bounce back and blow the roof off a year down the road. We made a good bit of positive ground. We made some strides, but 5 years from now, the buildings are packed beyond capacity. We have different staff now in different positions, where we have, Matt at Live Oak and Lucas over there in Live Oak, Robert's down in Branford. We have, all people like, man, our band in Lake City is 2 or 3 of the same team that was there, in COVID, Jason. Like we got, it's crazy when you think about just how much change can happen in 5 years. And it starts by just showing up and running the play. So I'm curious, just that idea of 32 trap, showing up and running the play. What does that feel like from your seat, standing in your shoes as volunteers, knowing, hey, it's Sunday, it's time to go serve?
I would say I've struggled with this for a long time, even before my old church. It's like, okay, I know that God's there, right? But is God going to show up and do something special today, right? It's one of these things where you want to see it, and I think it's kind of similar to whenever, when Jesus was doing miracles and stuff like that. Like you want to see the miracles happen. You want to see the action, and so it does question me, like, just for me, is how good am I doing just by doing the same thing that I'm doing back here every day? And so whenever I've heard you do that, and I think it was a couple of years, I think that was the first time I heard you say that, we, do the 32 trap, where it's just, you run the same thing, same play. We do it every day. And then we try to do the best that we can to do that play.
Yeah, you bring your best to run the play. And, and I think that kind of impacted me a pretty good bit, because I was like, all right, yeah, so we are here, we are doing this, to try to do the best we can. I know that God's here because I can feel his presence whenever we do these things. Is something miraculous going to happen, and when it does happen, it's almost like, and I think you've said this too, it's almost like it just recharges you. Brings you up, kind of puts you on a high, and it's like, okay, all right, when's it going to happen again? When's it going to happen again? Are we going to get this? That's right.
Are we going to get this? Are we going to get 3 yards, or are we going to take it home?
And that's the other part of 32 trap that we talk about, right? Yeah. Is that it's designed to get 3 yards.
Right.
But I remember when I was coaching, we had a back, and I mean, it felt like once a game, he was going to break a tackle on that play and take it to the house. And that wasn't every play, and he didn't know when it was coming, but he would just break tackle, take it to the house. And when you show up to run the play on Sundays, sometimes God just shows up. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Just shows up, takes it home. And like I said, it just refuels, what we do here. And just is like, okay, I'm glad that happened. That's the confirmation I needed. And it seems to happen a lot where I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? Am I doing good enough? God, is this still where you want me to be? Is this still what you want me to be doing? And then it's almost like within, I would say maybe not that Sunday, but then maybe it's the next Sunday, it happens.
Do you have any of those like Sundays or Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever in your mind where you felt like, oh man, I think we took that one to the house today?
Well, what was it, last week or the week before? That seemed to go really, really well.
I agree. If you were in Lake City, it was the Sunday that we talked about the problem of evil. And we ended with the song, Come, Jesus, Come. And I agree. That's exactly the one that I had in my mind. I felt like God showed up in that moment, and it was different, right? It wasn't just 3-4 yards, And what's cool about that, and Jason knows this, is that was not from the plan in the beginning of the week. That was, I was doing the online message that week, and I found myself quoting that song in the end of the online message. And I'm like, I don't need to quote that song. We need to sing that song. And I was like, Jason, what do you think about seeing if Casey can sing that song? And he's like, with the band? I was like, man, I'm thinking like old school special music. Let's find a cassette player like did traditional church. And he was like, well, what if we just had Tammy play it? I was like, do you think that they can pull that off? He's like, oh, we can ask. And you asked, and they said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a shot. And I'm going to tell Jason a little bit, Nikki, because this cracked me up when
he looks nervous.
Yeah. So he sent it, to Tammy and Casey about doing that song. And I guess Casey replied back pretty quick. It's like, yeah, like as soon as you said that, I'd like opened up like Instagram or TikTok or something, and the next reel was a girl singing that song. And I was like, oh man, this is like a God thing. And Jason was like, or Chinese spies are listening to you through your phone.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've got one better than that. Not better than that, but I had never heard that song before.
Yeah.
So the Friday before that Sunday, it came on my playlist, and I was sitting in the car wash waiting to get my car washed. And
is that what you do there?
Yeah, it is. You do. Get your car washed at the car wash. And I'm just like, I literally kept replaying. I've never heard the song. It touched me in a way that it was amazing. Bawling my eyes out on the way home. And then I find out that you talk about it in the service on Sunday. It's being played. He didn't tell me that it was on, that y'all had talked about it.
You're on the online service, and I quoted the online service.
And I was like, wait a minute. And then it was played. So yeah. God was showing up huge with that song for sure.
Well, and I think it's one of those things, like when you and I are talking in the text, Jason, I'm like, I think this would be a good way to end it, because talking about the problem of evil, that was the cry, of our hearts at that moment, is like, look, we're in a broken world, and there's only one thing that's going to fix it. And so let's just, Jesus, come on, just come on, bring it on. And, when Casey started singing that song, I think obviously I wanted to do it because I thought it would be a good moment, an impactful moment. But I think to your point, Jason, God made that moment bigger than us just showing up and running the play. And I've heard that from a lot, of people. And, it's cliche to, say, oh, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and that's like the sign of a powerful moment. And I think that's a little bit cliche and overblown. But at the same time, like, it was an impactful moment for a lot of people that just, I think, maybe recentered us on, the world's evil. The world's broken. There's been a lot of stuff happening, but our only hope is that Jesus comes to fix it, because, we're going to do our best until he does, but that's our hope. And I'll tell you, Zach Hill, who's our guitar player, was, or one of our guitar players in Lake City, was standing beside me. And the whole band didn't do that song. It was just Tammy and Casey. And as soon as we got done with that song, Zach turns to me and goes, wow, what a song.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was good.
For sure.
But I think the other piece of that with 32 Trap is that those, my mom used to call them God moments, right? God things, God moments. those God moments, the possibility for those lie within every Sunday or every Wednesday. Like it's not something that you plan or pull off. Like we just show up to run the play. You know, that's what we do. We show up and we run the play. And if we get 3 yards, then we did our job. You know, we were faithful. We were obedient. Now, if you're only getting 2 or 3 yards every play, you know, sometimes just honestly, it can feel a little bit mundane and monotonous. But then when God shows up, it's like, oh, I remember while we're doing this, I remember what this looks like. And I think that what encourages me is that it's those moments that we're looking for are inherently supernatural. You know, like they are, if what we want to happen happens, it needs to be something that we couldn't make happen. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why those moments are such a big deal. Any other like times in your life where, you know, you've just really felt like you've seen God show up and do something that just seemed, okay, this is a whole lot more than we thought was happening right here, right now?
So I would just say this one, and I think I kind of briefly mentioned it to you because it's another one of these things where, kind of where I'm always kind of evaluating I don't want to say my worthiness, but what am I doing? You know,
well, we all want to make a difference,
right? We all want to make an impact, right?
Hey, whoa! Look at that. That's synergy. That's synergy.
So, you know, and I've only had this happen a few times. I can only recall it happen one other time, you know, in my working career. And, you know, I work for an orthopedic group out of Jacksonville. And, you know, one of those things I've always looking at is like, hey, what good am I doing being here? You know, all I'm doing is dealing with, you know, computers and, you know, people who are angry because their stuff doesn't work right and stuff like that. And just the normal everyday type stuff that goes along with my job and my position. And, you know, I guess it was last year, we had our small group meeting and we had met, you know, a couple here that was, you know, interested in being a part of our small group because we live a small group. I had talked to her a couple of times. She had, you know, she'd come to church periodically with her and her husband, and I would talk to him. And I hadn't seen him in probably, 3 months. And then one Sunday, right after church, I walked down and I saw her, and she was in a wheelchair. And I was like, yeah, hey, what happened? And then she just kind of goes in and starts telling me everything that's going on, you know, with her, and that, you know, she can't get into a doctor's office to see, you know, basically one doctor is telling her they might have to amputate her leg. And I mean, just all this horrible stuff. And one of the main reasons was that she couldn't even get in to see a physician, or a physician would even take her to even see her, you know. So I was like, I work for a large group who has a lot of contacts, and let me just see. I said, I'm not promising anything. I'm not saying I can do anything. Let me just see where I can get. So I've reached out to my director, and because he's very tied in with the medical community over there. I just said, you know, hey, is this something one of our doctors could do, do you think? And they were like, no, but I know a doctor who can. And so he reached out to that doctor and then was like, yeah, I'll see her, tell her to call in, tell her name, I'll get her in.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And it went from something that just seemed so desperate for her till now she was being told that she would probably never be out of that wheelchair and never be able to walk again. I mean, she is, I don't even think she's 40 years old, she's probably going to be able to walk again within a year.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and it was just one of those things that just hit me like, all right, so
it just so happened.
Just happened. It's just not, you know, it just that whole concept came up to me because it was like, okay, what are the odds that I met her that one time? Number one, remember who she was, you know, because that's a big thing for me. I meet people all the time and I'm like, I recognize her face, but I can't remember the name.
Hey,
and
you,
yeah, but then just saw her, and you know, and I try to be kind of outgoing and greeting people and stuff like that, but it's not the most comfortable thing for me to do.
Yeah.
But when I saw her, I was just like, I need to talk to her, you know, and, you know, just having that interaction with her, being able to put all those pieces in place. not saying that she would have ever made it to that point, but to be able to get her to a position where she is now has some hope.
Yeah, there's legitimate hope there.
Yeah.
There's literally light back in her eye when I see her on Sunday mornings, from before he was able to help her to now is like a world of difference when you see her.
Well, and I think, man, it's such a good reminder that as we're talking about serving, right? People are the point.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing the job, so to speak, is not the point. People are the point.
Right.
You know? And so whenever we can do that for people, I think it's so important. That's such a good reminder.
Yeah. I just want to say something else about that too. We had a brief conversation about people being on the point a few weeks ago, and not that any other church I've ever been to hasn't said it, but it's never really resonated until I've been here. The whole logo of the Orchard: love God, love people. And me and Nikki always joked about it. It was like, man, that whole love God's the easy. That love people.
The loving God's the easy part. Spoiler.
The love people is the hard part. And, and I've heard you mention a lot of times in preaching that, God's heart is for the people. And it's in the Bible, that, Jesus was for people. He wasn't for, a process or for a church or a tabernacle or a synagogue or that. He was for people. No matter who they were, no matter what their life, was from, no matter what their life is now, whatever they come from, whatever they're doing, Jesus is for them. And I think that's a reminder, especially whenever you have so much hate, going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful reminder that, yes, we're called to stand on truth. We never want to compromise truth. Right. But you stand in truth with grace.
Right.
And that's such a hard tension to manage. Loving God's the easy part.
Yeah.
Loving people, especially when they're not easy, can be difficult for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing. People are the point. People are why we're serving, what we're doing. Jason in a sound booth on Sunday morning is not just there because he's always dreamed about, running Pro Presenter. That's not the point. Nikki has grandbabies. She doesn't need to play with yours on Sunday mornings. But people are the point. Let's kind of wind down with this. Nikki, you've already shared that, part of your story, and even here at the Orchard, was being very intentional with getting plugged in to serve, as you came to the Orchard and found your footing, being very intentional, getting plugged in. What would you say to somebody kind of in your shoes who's on the sidelines, thinking about serving, kind of figuring out what that looks like? What would you just say to them on the other side of all of our, team nights?
I would definitely say if you felt led to lead somewhere, obviously, or to serve somewhere, pray about it first, but just do it. And even if you start it and you realize I don't fit in here very well, that's okay. Just find another. Because I did that. I did the event team. I thought this is going to be great. I get to plan parties, hang out with all my friends because they were all on it. And it was not where I was supposed to be at the time. And I remember, telling the group, I was like, I got to step back from this. I can't do this. And then they were fine with that. And then I found where I could lead or serve better. But pray about it and then just do it. And just, try different areas of ministry if you need to, but
no offense policy. And I got to give credit to AJ for coming up with that phrase. He's like, we have a no offense policy. If you try it out and it's not for you, we will take no offense. Right. You need to try something else. So I think that's really good advice. What about you, Jason?
I would just say that some of the areas that I serve in, they are not within my comfort zone. And in some of the areas that I serve in, they are. I'm very comfortable around technology, and I feel I do, can do a very significant or very well job at that part of it. And let me just be clear. I don't like running Pro Presenter. I run Pro Presenter.
Shocked to hear this.
Yeah, I run it because it's something I can do and do well, right? So, and even running, media or not media, the audio, I feel I do a decent job at that. I may not do the best job. I think that the actual sound engineer that comes to our church does a better job at it than me. But
the fact that he calls himself a sound engineer, he kind of knows what he's doing.
Yes,
yeah. I prefer the term sound guy.
Sound guy, yeah. I mean, but in his professional life, he is that is what he does.
He is,
yeah. But the lights is probably my least favorite thing because to me, in my mind, that takes a bit of creativity that I just don't have. So, but to say that serving and being a part of serving, it's kind of I don't know. I guess it's kind of ingrained in me just to, hey, there's a job that needs to be done, and I believe that I can do it well. And as much as I wanted to, I tried to hold off here as long as I could.
He held off for 4 or 5 weeks?
I'll just say the Orchard might be lucky or unlucky that they have me, that I came on when I did. But because the last church asked me to come help them out, I was like, no, not doing it. I mean, we went there for about a year. I was like, no, gonna not do it. Because, I think one of the biggest things that I would just say about the Orchard here real quick is we go through these stages, it seems like, where we have an abundance of volunteers and then we don't have volunteers. And I think right now we're at a point where volunteers are coming in and they are there, and it allows me to kind of step back a little bit and just kind of oversee. And I think that, just being able to see that where other people are wanting to be engaged and help out and be a part of, the team of serving people, I think it's kind of where, like Nikki said earlier, Jesus would have us do is the end result is, I believe, is serving people in these positions more so than just serving an entity like, the Orchard or any other church.
And I think I would kind of end it with saying that as well, is that if you're praying about serving and thinking about serving, don't just think about what do you want to do, what can you do? Think about who do you want to serve and how can you serve? Make people the point, and everything else will kind of open up and fall into place there, I think. So one final thing, and we'll just kind of mention this and move on quickly, is go ahead and mark your calendars down. November 23rd is going to be Impact Sunday across all of our locations, where we're going to be engaged not in church on site, but in service projects all throughout our communities. And so if you've never, served before, that is an easy and fun way to engage. And I think that you'll be happy you did. So go ahead and circle that calendar. I know it's a little ways out there, but November 23rd, it's going to be Impact Sunday, and a great place to start serving. So Jason, Nikki, podcast legends, Hall of Famers, thanks for stopping in today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next week right here on Let's Talk About That.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.